All right, good morning, basketball fans, and welcome to the Upstate Hoops Podcast on FingerLakes1.com. I'm Jim Sinacropi, here inside the FingerLakes1.com studios on the third floor of the North Park building in Seneca Falls, New York. We're coming at you live here on Sunday, January 28th, 2018, and we got a great show tonight. Nobody in studio with me here this morning, but tons and tons of stuff to go over. There wasn't a lot of games this week, but just some of the games that did take place were great games and some surprising results, some important games, some key games coming up next week. By the time I'm sitting here next week talking to you, it's going to be February. It's going to be Super Bowl Sunday. It's going to be February, and we're going to be about, just about 9 or 10 days from the end of the regular season. So then it's sectional time, and so we're going to talk today about some of the teams that maybe have the best chances to make a sectional final. I mean, around here we always like to get as many Wayne Finger Lakes teams as we can in these sectional finals, and so we can then bring them all to you live on FL1 radio. And it's a great time of the year. It actually feels kind of spring-like out there. That's making it feel more like we're moving along, but it still is January. There's still a lot of big games to go here and league titles to decide. So we'll look at some of the league standings as well. Also got some big news for you right after I recognize our sponsors. The Upstate Hoops Podcast and all of our coverage of Wayne Finger Lakes High School basketball is brought to you thanks to the support of Generations Bank. They have locations in Auburn, Farmington, Geneva, Phelps, Seneca Falls, Union Springs, and Waterloo. They're online at mygenbank.com and some of the best online banking tools around, both on the computer and on smartphone app from Generations Bank. And, of course, Dr. Rod Littlejohn, delivering over 30 years of smiles and styles at Littlejohn Orthodontics. Check them out online at littlejohnortho.com. And Bill Cram Chevrolet, where you can save plenty on 5 and 20 between Seneca Falls and Waterloo. Browse their full inventory of new and used vehicles at billcramchevrolet.com. Mention you saw them on Finger Lakes 1. Get $250 off any new or used vehicle. So if you're in the market for a new car or truck or a used car or truck, get in there. All you got to say is, hey, saw you guys on Finger Lakes 1. They said you'll give us a $250 credit. And there you go. You save $250. So I mentioned some big news off the top. And, yeah, I have some news for you. We've learned that Braden Zanelovic, he was an all-tournament MVP in A2 last year when Wayne won the sectional title. He's back. He hurt his foot in football. He's been out all season long. The Wayne Eagles still in first place in the Finger Lakes East. They're riding an 11-game winning streak, but he's set to return finally, cleared by the doctor, getting enough practices in, and the return date. And sorry, Mustang fans, but he'll be back January 30th against Penn Yan. And then that means he'll be back for the second Minders game, too, on February 6th. So going to be great to see the Fresh Prince of Ontario back in uniform and on the court in a few more regular season games. And then, importantly, he's going to be back for sectionals in A2. So can't wait for Braden Zanelovic to return. Before we get into some of the results from this week, I think there's some teams that are really streaking. There's some teams on the rise and some teams on the fall. I want to focus on some teams on the rise here. On the boys' side of things, the Lions have won 8 straight, including a win against Gananda on Saturday night. The Whitman boys have won 9 straight. That's nothing new. Once they've gotten into league play over the past couple of years, they've just rolled. They're 10-0 in league, won 9 straight. And the Wayne boys, 11 straight. Only lost the first game of the season against Pittsford Sutherland. So they won 11 in a row, and they're expecting Braden Zanelovic back on, January 30th? What is that? Tuesday night. So the rich get richer, I suppose, up there in Ontario. On the girls' side, the Romulus girls have quietly won 4 in a row and gotten back into things in the Finger Lakes West. They're currently in 4th place Still 3 games behind Bloomfield, who lost this week, but 2 games behind South Seneca, who's in second place. Speaking of South Seneca, they're riding an 8-game winning streak, so they had a rough start to the beginning of their season. Of course, a whole new look to their team. I said that they're going to get better and better as the year goes on, and Coach Heather Mott and her Lady Falcons have proved me right. They had a really big win this week, handing Bloomfield their first loss, and it was a 20-point win. So South Seneca back at it, looking good again in C2 to win a 3rd straight sectional title, and winners of 8 in a row. The Geneva girls have won 4 in a row, and they're just now 2.5 games back of Mid-Lakes in the Finger Lakes East. But just after a horrible start, they've finally pulled their record up above 500 at 8-6 with a nice win over Minders. And the Red Creek girls won 5 in a row. They lost back on the week between Christmas and New Year's to Minders pretty badly, and that kind of soured some of the hype on these Red Creek girls. They had a couple girls suspended who have now, I think they've both returned. Didn't lose any games during that stretch. Winners of 5 in a row. Just actually tied for first with the Gananda girls. Gananda's 10-0. Red Creek's 9-1. So tied 1 game. Oh, wait, that wouldn't be right. They should be a game back. Yeah, they should be a game back. 1 game back in the win column, 1 game back in the loss column. So they sit at second. And then, of course, the Mid-Lakes girls. Well, before I get to Mid-Lakes, Palmac in the Finger Lakes East has won 5 in a row, too. And right now they stand as pretty much the only challenger to the Mid-Lakes girls, who are undefeated, the only undefeated team in all the Wayne Finger Lakes at 14-0, riding that 14-game winning streak. And the amazing thing about these Mid-Lake girls is they were 10-12 last year. And so they expected to be good. They were a young team then. They returned just about everybody from last year's 10-12 team that lost in the sectional quarterfinals. But man, they've added Carol Walker, a freshman, who was in our studio a few weeks ago. Elena Forbes has obviously continued to improve. She was incredible as a sophomore. She was an all Wayne Finger Lakes FL1 Sports first teamer as a sophomore, but she's having an outstanding year. We saw them live against Minders in a game you heard on FL1 radio, saw the video replay of the next morning, and very, very impressed with this Mid-Lakes team. It's more than just those 2 girls I mentioned, so we're going to talk about them a little bit. We're going to hear our interview with Elena Forbes as well. So let's next just kind of take a look at some of the key games this week. I'm not going to run through every single result. There wasn't a lot this week, but there were some big games, and so on the boys' side of things, it was a pretty quiet week until Friday rolled around when Bloomfield and Whitman squared off. It was really Bloomfield's last chance, or Whitman's last chance. No, Bloomfield's last chance to make a run at Whitman, maybe catch a share of that Finger Lakes West League. But it was a good game, but Whitman wins 54-52. Ben Stone hits a layup with 2 seconds left to secure the win. So a good game at Marcus Whitman. So Bloomfield's starting to apparently play a little better, been really inconsistent. And Whitman, just been owning the Finger Lakes West for the last couple of seasons. Also in the West on Friday night, Naples beat Red Jacket, and then the Minders boys beat Mid-Lake 68-46. And it was a nice win for Minders on the road at Mid-Lakes. Mid-Lakes can be dangerous. I think it's a little disappointing for Mid-Lakes. They're not going to win the Finger Lakes East. They're sitting at 4-5 right now. They're 6-9 overall. It's Bryce Burry's senior year, Trevor Millman's senior year. Devin Hicks is a junior now. A lot of good supporting pieces there in Mid-Lakes for Coach Zirkus. And I think that at this point in their season, they're just trying to get things to a point where they feel that they can win a game in sectionals, because they've bowed out in the quarterfinals the last 2 years to Newark, no less, who, interestingly enough, They're both kind of battling each other out to get in the top half of those Class B sectional point standing so they can get a home game. But there's a decent chance that they could meet in the 8-9 game this year again for the third straight year. So Mid-Lakes is trying to get to a point, I think, where with all the pieces that they can compete and make a run at a sectional to get to a sectional final, get to a sectional semifinal, get to a sectional semifinal. You're one win away from the Blue Cross Arena. And again, that Class B, all Finger Lakes East teams. So a lot of these teams, they might be matching up in sectionals, might be a third game where they play against a particular team, a common opponent that they know well. And so, we're going to keep an eye on Mid-Lakes for the next couple weeks and see if they can't gain some momentum heading towards sectionals. But, nice win for Minders. It was Mid-Lakes made a couple of runs at them, but Minders able to win pretty comfortably. So speaking of Minders, last night, probably the biggest game in a while for the Blue Devils. They had to go on the road to Penn Yan, and I say big game for the Blue Devils, big game for Penn Yan too. Penn Yan, speaking of Mid-Lakes, they beat Penn Yan a couple weeks ago, and that was a devastating loss for the Mustangs, who were trying to get into that mix, or they were in the mix at that point for the Finger Lakes East title. And heading into last night, they're still in the mix, but key game against Minders, both one loss in the Finger Lakes East, and they're hosting Minders now. And I was at the game. It was a nice crowd. It was a decent atmosphere, and it was a good game. It was actually a game that Penn Yan controlled most of the game, leading by 5 after 3 periods, and then it was just all Minders after that. They end up winning 47-36 with a big fourth quarter. Hunter Hossie had 16 points. Kellen Carraher had 9. Darren Miller, 7 big points. Devin Anderson, 6 points, but 2 free throws down the stretch, a key left-handed layup down the stretch. He really came through at the end to help Minders secure that win. For Penn Yan, Dylan Stape had 14, Desmond Batten had 10, and Ben Emerson had 8. And Penn Yan's a really good team. Watching them play, there's a lot of sometimes they talking against each other. I mean, Desmond Batten, the clear leader, sometimes he's pretty vocal out there. What a great athlete he is. I really enjoy watching him play. Maybe one of the best man-to-man defenders in the Finger Lakes East. But they'll have another shot at Minders. It'll be on senior night in Seneca Falls. That's a game you'll see on Finger Lakes 1. But last night, there was also a key flagrant foul that came early in the fourth quarter that kind of opened it up for Minders. It was a breakaway layup for Minders where the layup was made, and then after the layup, a kid pushed a Minders kid. The referee called it an intentional foul, but also counted the basket. So we had 2 free throws. Minders got the ball. It was a big swing in the game. And looking at this Minders team, of course, they started the season at 10-0 before losing a couple straight, and they bounced back now with wins at home against Newark, on the road at Mid-Lakes, and on the road at Penn Yan. They shot okay in that Mid-Lakes game, but really, I think this Minders team has all the pieces to be very good, to beat Wayne in Wayne, even with Zenolovic, and to win a back-to-back Class B titles. It's all there. You can see the talent they have, and especially when Darren Miller is getting more comfortable, I guess, in his role as the only junior really on the team, and that plays minutes. They just got to make shots. I mean, they were 2 of 25 in the loss to Wayne, and they only lost by 3. Last night they shot horrible for most of the game until down the stretch. Now, they made their free throws down the stretch. That was big. But, man, guys, just make the shots, and it's all there for you. And they're all good shooters. I know they're good shooters. So better, I guess, to struggle a little bit now and maybe get hot shooting later. But if this team makes shots, if this Minders team makes three-pointers, if they don't need to shoot 50% from 3, they just need to shoot like 30% from 3. Lately, they've been shooting 8% from three. So tough to win games like that, although they have won some games shooting poorly. But this team just needs to shoot better. They've been relying on Jake Robinson for a lot of offense inside, which is great. If Jake stays out of foul trouble, gets the ball on the post or on the baseline, he's going to score. He hasn't had trouble shooting, I suppose. Hunter Haas has been reliable in putting the ball in the basket. Last night, for a while, he was the only guy that was actually able to put it in the basket. Everybody was getting shots, but Hunter was the one that was converting them. Darren Miller, I mentioned, a real key piece to this Minders team. He's able to get shots because of his size. He's 6'5", and a really strong ball player and can play inside and outside. But I'm talking about Kellen Carraher, Devin Anderson, Quentin Battle, and Jesse Cabot, the four guards. You need a couple of them to shoot 40% from beyond the arc. And you need Devin to make a few shots going to the basket as well, Quentin as well, Kellen as well, taking it to the basket. And this team's going to be really, really difficult to beat. But if they don't make shots, they shoot like they've been shooting for the past several weeks for the most part, it's going to be tough for them to win a sectional semifinal game, shooting 13% from three-point range and maybe 30% from the field. I don't know how you work on that stuff because I know that they shoot and work. They all work really hard. So I think they just got to relax, keep shooting. They'll eventually fall, and Minders will be tough to beat. So while we're talking about the Finger Lakes East, there was a crazy game last night in Waterloo. Now, running through here, we're not talking about all the games, and this might have been borderline a game that we wouldn't have even mentioned if maybe Newark went in, if Newark went in and won this game. They didn't win. They lost in triple overtime at Waterloo. I've been looking at this Newark team, and we saw them play at Minders, and it was a good game. And Newark played really well. It was probably the best they played in the times I've seen them this year was at Minders in a game that they lost. But I mentioned earlier that Newark and Mid-Lakes were battling for position in Class B. But it's a devastating loss for Newark last night to Waterloo. It was Waterloo's second league win. They're 2-7 in the league now. They're 5-9 overall. And for Newark, who had clawed their way back to 500 in the league, they're now 4-5 and 5-9 overall. Newark Reds are 5-9 overall with just a couple of days left in January. And I think heading into this podcast, one of the things I was going to talk about was, hey, Newark is getting better. They lost their guards last year. They've always had great guards. And then in the game against Minders, you saw Logan Moynihan hit 5 threes. Jaden Peters hit 5 threes. Alejandro Caraballo getting some time. You're just starting to think, okay, Newark's getting better. If they can just get in the top half of that Class B sectional standings, that they could get back to the Blue Cross. We could see a Minders-Newark rematch maybe in the Blue Cross again because, of course, they have Taylor Clements, just probably one of the most physically dominant big men in the Wayne Finger Lakes. Left-hander, soft touch. We all know about Taylor Clements. We've seen him play varsity basketball now for 4 years. But triple overtime loss at Waterloo. And I don't want to make it sound like Waterloo's a pushover because this is a team on the rise too. I think this win goes a long way for Waterloo next year. And it shows Waterloo that they might be able to win some games in sectionals this year. They might be able to make an upset in sectionals, especially against the Finger Lakes East team. They beat Mid-Lakes, they beat Newark. Those are two teams in the middle of the Finger Lakes East standings. So it was an amazing game, I suppose, last night in Waterloo. Derek Sluka finishes with 40 points for Waterloo, the junior, and 12 rebounds. Mike Hubbard had 10 points and 9 rebounds. Tim Imhoff had 8 points and 10 rebounds. Taylor Clements finished with 14 points, 11 rebounds, fouled out in the first overtime, and that's when it got really difficult for Newark to score. Marcel Green de Sousa, 14 points and 7 rebounds. And Waterloo just 9 of 25 from free throws, from the free throw line last night. And, shoot 50% from free throws. These are varsity basketball players. Make 50% of your free throws 12-foot shot with nobody guarding you. Your varsity basketball players, and the game doesn't even go to overtime, and Waterloo wins outright. Sluka never came out of the game. He was really the only guy who was scoring for Waterloo. And after Clemens fouled out, Newark had to force a lot of shots with less than 5 seconds on the shot clock. Waterloo gave up some second-half chances, which kept Newark in the game throughout those 3 overtime periods. And Julian Ruiz, the sophomore guard, also never came out of the game. He's been cold for a few games shooting, and he played the whole game. I mean, it was a gut-check game for the Waterloo Indians, and I think it's a game that this program can build on, because next year, Sluka is senior, Ruiz and Hubbard, a couple sophomores are now juniors. There's a third sophomore. It's tough to say, they're going to contend for the league title, because Wayne returns everybody except Zenilovic. But Waterloo is a program on the rise. Coach Paul Dinan, big win against Newark last night. So, also on Saturday night, Clyde beat Sodus 62-50. I mentioned that because Sodus has been a team over the past few years that can beat anybody on any given night. It was at Sodus. It was a nice win for Clyde to pick up that 12-point win at Sodus and maintain their half-a-game lead over Lions in the Wayne County standings. Clyde's 11-1. Lions is 10-1 in the league standing. Clyde 12-3 overall. Lions 13-2, as I mentioned off the top, on an 8-game winning streak, and they won one last night. Also, a big game for them. They had to go on the road to Gananda, one of the toughest places in all of Wayne County to play. Wayne County has some great home court advantages. Of course, Lions, we all know about the Atwood Gymnasium. Sodus is a real unique venue with a balcony seating and all the bleachers on one side. Clyde's a tough place to play, of course, great student section. But Gananda, probably the best student section in all the Wayne Finger Lakes. Really, really tough place to lose at the home of the Blue, or to win at the home of the Blue Panthers. East Rochester, another tough place to play. So Lions goes in against Gananda. Gananda tries a triangle and 2 for most of the night, but you can mix up any defenses you want to try to stop Justice Smith, and there might not be a defense if Justice is playing well. His size to shoot over you, his ball handling skills, his ability to finish at the rim, his improved three-point shooting. Offensively, he's got the whole game. And then now if he wants to play some defense, then they're unbeatable. And he has played better defense this year. He gets a lot of steals. He's smart and big, a lot of block shots. He's learned to stay out of foul trouble as well, which is something that was a problem at the beginning of the season still. One of their early losses to Geneva, he got in foul trouble right off the gate. Within the first 5 minutes of their season, he's got a couple fouls. So last night, Lions beats Gananda. Justice Smith, 24 points, 12 rebounds, 7 assists. That's not an uncommon line for this kid. What is uncommon, and which is a real bright spot for Zach Young's Lions heading towards the end of the regular season into the sectionals, is junior Corell Kelly had 20 points. Now, this kid has shown the ability to score in the past, but he struggled for months. End of last season, beginning of this season. 20 points last night against a good Gananda team. If he starts scoring, if he starts averaging between 15 and 20 points, look out. Because Lions has a lot of options. Justice Smith's brother, Tootie Smith, 10 points. Benji Bad Company Kemp, 10 points, 10 rebounds, a double-double. Just a sophomore. He's starting to elevate his game. This Lions team is really rising, and they're going to be back next year, too. David Weaver's going to be back. with them, and they're going to bring more talent up from JVs. And Lions, whatever they do this year, they know they can do as good or better next year in Justice Smith's senior year. So Lions is really starting. Zach Young's doing a great job with these guys, and they're primed now to make a legit run at the Wayne County title, which has been Clyde, for the past few years, has really had the advantage over Lions. I think that's starting to turn. We're going to see when Lions goes to Clyde if Derek Chance can get another win over Lions. Of course, Lions beat him in the Atwood in one of the best games of the year. Derek Chance and Lions are going to square off again, and Drew Carnevale and Marcus Chance in a game that'll be on Finger Lakes 1 in a couple weeks. And that should be for the Wayne County title. It really could be legitimately win or lose decides it without even worrying about what happens in any other game. So one of the games that Lions has to look out for is East Rochester Wednesday night. That game's going to be on fingerlakes1.com. They're coming to the Atwood. Going to get a look at Matt Cicero and John Lexer and company. So yeah, Lions looking great. Good chance in C2 for the Lions. Good chance in C1 for Gananda, too. They did lose this game, but Jaden Castrosini with 18 points, and Gananda has been playing really well, too, after a somewhat slow start to the season. But tough part for Gananda. Already lost to Clyde once. Now they've lost to Lions twice. They're standing at 8-4 in the Wayne County League, 10-5 overall. So their focus, I think, now is going to turn towards C1 and sectional. So let's talk about some girls basketball. A lot of wild things happening in girls basketball this week, and it started out on Tuesday night with there's two undefeated teams in all the Wayne Finger Lakes heading into this week. It was Mid Lakes, the girls, and Bloomfield girls. Braylon Scott, double-double every night. Every single game this year she's got a double-double, and Tuesday was no different. She had 12 points and 11 rebounds. It's a lot lower than what you usually see from her. Usually it's more like 28 points and 16 rebounds. But South Seneca wins at home against Bloomfield, 62-40. So this is a South Seneca team that had lost to Red Jacket earlier this year. They avenged that loss, and they were really looking a little bit out of sorts earlier in the year, but they are playing great now. Maybe almost as good as they were playing last year at this time with that team that went to the state Final Four. I'm not saying that they're state Final Four caliber, but they're certainly sectional contenders again. And if you ask me what their odds were to return to a sectional final even back in early December, I would have said, geez, maybe 3-10, 2-10 now. Get back to a sectional final, 6 or 7-10. They've got the experience. All these kids have experience, even though they're in different roles. Emma Fletcher, and there's 3 Fletchers on this team, 3 Fletcher triplets on the South Seneca team, and of course 2 Shawless sisters. Emma Fletcher with 18 points in that win. Skylar Shawless with 14 points, 11 rebounds. Logan Shawless, just a freshman, 7 points and 12 rebounds, and Jenna McDonald had 11. So, the South Seneca girls playing great basketball. Wednesday night in girls action, saw Geneva beat Waterloo 52-49 at Waterloo. I mentioned this game because Lauren Devaney had her career high 31 points, 13 rebounds, enough to top Waterloo. Logan Castiglione had 16 points in that one. Penn Yan and Minders. Minders had lost to the Penn Yan girls. Now Penn Yan came to Minders, and Minders wins 61-48. Sydney Bloom, congratulations on her 1,000th point in that game, in that loss to Minders. Madison Barnett had 18 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 steals. Heidi Miller had 14 points and 7 rebounds. Hannah Brown-Trice with a double-double, 11 points, 10 assists. And when Hannah against Midlake, she started making some mid-range jump shots as well. And she's such a key. She's always going to do good things for this team out there. But when she starts making, like I say, those little 8 to 13-foot jump shots, really opens things up for Minders. And Maddie Barnett had been struggling shooting. Really good game, 18 points, go along with those 7 rebounds. And she had 5 threes against Midlakes later that week, too. So this Minders girls team, another team who's been kind of shaky and maybe starting to get it together. Of course, I'll get to that Minders Midlakes game here that was played on Friday night in just a bit. But first, got to also congratulate Braylon Scott of Bloomfield, 1,000 points. So a lot of kids entering the 1,000-point club this year. Braylon Scott and Sydney Bloom, 2 of the best in the Wayne Finger Lakes girls, both entering the 1,000-point club this week. So congratulations, Sydney and Braylon. Thursday night, Bloomfield bounces back with a win against Marcus Whitman, 59-46. And here you go, Braylon Scott, 25 points, 18 rebounds. Jesse Sheehan, 11 points, 8 rebounds. Alexis Gossage, 10 points. Emily Thompson in the loss, 21 points and 7 rebounds. And Jordan Chappelle has been putting up great numbers all year, too, for Marcus Whitman, 16 points and 9 rebounds. Also in the West Thursday night, big win for Naples. Red Jacket had been a team on the rise in girls basketball. And I think they made it as high as 5 in our power rankings, the Wayne Finger Lakes girls power rankings. Naples with a 42-37 win down in Vine Valley, defeating Red Jacket. Haley Langan, she's the only one who's putting up numbers like Braylon Scott almost every night. 21 points, 22 rebounds for Haley Langan and the Big Green Machine. Sydney Close led Red Jacket with 11. Friday night, Red Creek girls continue to win. Sometimes it's not pretty. They beat Marion 51-38, and Marion has been tough as of late. They've been struggling in Wayne County. And then that brings us to the game of the week, really, for the girls. Although that South Seneca Bloomfield game could be game of the week for the girls. But Minders Midlakes, it was a legitimate Midlakes. I think their undefeated season was legitimately at threat when Minders came to town. And it didn't look like it, though, when Midlakes opened up a 15-point lead, but Minders came back to take a 5-point lead in the third quarter, early fourth quarter, and then Midlakes did what you'd expect a undefeated, more experienced team to do. This team doesn't have a ton of experience. A lot of underclassmen. Claire DeBouver, one of the lone senior contributors, along with Jordan Noy, the point guard, which Jordan played great in that game. But the bulk of that team, Elena Forbes, Macy Kisner, they're both juniors. Kara Walker, just a freshman. They closed it out. And it wasn't even close at the end. 64-48 was the final. Again, I mentioned Maddie Barnett, 5 3-pointers in that game, so she's starting to come on. HBT played well with 14 points. Heidi Miller had 10. Elena Forbes, 29 points. And when you see this girl play in person, it's very impressive. The ball handling, she goes behind the back, not to be flashy, but when it serves her purpose to get where she wants to on the court, she hardly came out of the game. She anticipates passing lanes as good as anybody I've seen in girls basketball. Tons of steals. She finishes when she takes it to the basket. She finishes in transition. She can shoot the three. Really, really impressed with Elena Forbes. And when you show up to the game and you see Elena Forbes out there shooting around with her team, it's hard to believe that she's as dominant as she is. So really, really fun to watch Elena play. Also really impressed to watch Kara Walker play, to watch the way that she handles herself as a freshman on the court, the way she physically can compete as a freshman on the boards. She had a couple really big 3-point shots. She shoots it from here. But really impressed with Nate Rich's Midlakes team. And they have to play Pelmac twice still because of the winter weather, which is kind of odd. That's going to be a threat. Pelmac's very good. That we'll see if they can get by Pelmac and remain undefeated, especially when they have to go to Pelmac. So I guess it'd be a good time right now to play an interview with Elena Forbes from our post-game show after that win against Minders. So here you go. It's Elena Forbes sitting in with myself and Nick Ciotti.
Elena Forbes, huh? What a game.
Yeah.
29 points. Now you guys jumped out to a nice early lead. Then I think you guys were up 18. Then Minders ends up coming up 5, and then you guys kind of responded at the end. Is that something that that you take as because you're a great team now at 14-0? That's what great teams do, right?
Yeah, we really had to push the ball because they made a run and we weren't going to let up.
Yeah, well, obviously you're aware that you're undefeated, right? And so you know that was kind of on the line. Is that something now going forward that is important to try to complete this undefeated season, or could it maybe a loss not be maybe even be a good thing heading towards the sectionals?
We're really trying to keep the undefeated going because everyone's gunning for us, so we're trying to push up the court really fast.
Yeah.
Congratulations, by the way, great game.
Thank
Very
you.
impressive with your play. First time I've seen you play. It was, you hate to say boy, girl or anything, but that was, you handled the ball, jump, stop, shot, it was great. So one question I'd have for you, you play really hard. It's great to see you press, you guys are going end to end, and you're running the floor. You looked a little tired. You look like you got a little tired.
Yeah, I did.
You think that impact, and to me, watching your play, your skill level got a little sloppy, I thought, in the second half. And I think I attributed it to being tired. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I did get a little tired. We were pushing the ball
You're pushing
down.
hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you usually play 30, 32 minutes, or do you usually get a little more of a sub? I know close games.
Usually, close games, I usually get like a 30-second break, and then I go back in. But if we're up by a lot, I usually sit like the fourth quarter.
Okay.
So another unique thing about your team, Elena, is that you're so young. Like, you're one of the best players in the Wayne Finger Lakes, maybe Section 5. You're still just a junior. And Carol Walker is just a freshman, was really impressive tonight, hitting a big shot. And she's the second leading scorer on your team. You do have some seniors in Jordan and Claire, but Macy Kisner's just a junior. Sydney Pasalakwa's just a junior. It's got to be pretty exciting to have this much success when you still have so much in front of you as a group.
Yeah, we're all young and we all got talent and we all put it together.
Now, last year you guys were 10-12, I think, on the season. You lost in the quarterfinals of sectionals. You return essentially the same team, but this year you're so much better. What did you guys do to improve in the offseason? I know you added Kara as a freshman, but what's the difference?
We tend to push the ball faster down the court, and we work definitely as a team.
Yeah, you can see that tonight. Certainly impressive.
So what are your goals, Coach? Or Jimmy was talking about it a little bit ago. Like undefeated is great. I mean, what's the big focus for you? Is it league title, sectionals, states? What's on your mind? So what do you guys talk about?
All the way. We're trying to get league titles and sectionals and keep pushing it.
Yeah, good.
Well, you certainly got a great opportunity. It was a lot of fun to watch you play. And great to talk to you again. I know you were in the studio once, and it really is a pleasure to watch you play. Wish you guys the best of luck the rest of the way, and I'm sure we'll see you again on Finger Lakes 1 before the end of before this run ends.
Thank you.
Yeah,
okay.
Keep playing hard. That's all
Good
you
job,
can do.
Elena.
Play hard, leave it on the floor. Good job.
So we're going to step aside here for just a couple minutes when we come back.
So, there you have it, Elena Forbes after that big win against Minders. And if you get a chance to get out and watch her play and watch this Mid-Lakes team play, I suggest that you do it, whether they're coming to your town or you get a chance to take a drive to Clifton Springs, or maybe you get to see them in sectionals. Maybe you get to see them at Rush Henrietta for the Class B sectional final. I don't know. They're beatable, though. I mean, it's not. They're not that type of dominant team. They're not that type of 14-0 team that just. Minders had a chance to beat them at Minders. They were up 5 at Mid-Lakes against this team in the second half. So they maybe are a little size challenged or not. They don't have that true big girl in the middle, but really competitive, and they'll wear you down and really athletic and and smart. They pass the ball. A lot of girls basketball teams, when they run their half court, the ball doesn't move quickly. These girls are zipping passes. They're making strong cuts. They're crashing the boards. They're very good. They're very good. Whether they're going to finish the season undefeated, head into sectionals and undefeated, I don't know. They have some tests left. But a lot of fun to watch them play, and we wish them luck the rest of the way and really hope to see them in Rush Henrietta for the sectional finals. And there's going to be some really, really interesting semifinal games, maybe even quarterfinal games for the girls in Class B. And, we'll be there for them. So getting close to sectionals. So speaking of sectionals, before we get to the power rankings in the week ahead, I just want to run through kind of some of the teams that I think, we've had a lot of guests in the studio this year. Maybe less of me just talking to you about basketball. But I'm going to take this opportunity now to kind of just tell you the teams that I think are a good bet to make a sectional final. I think even the best teams come in at maybe a 75% chance to make a sectional final, because in those semifinal games, almost anything can happen. But these are the teams that I think have a chance, and I'm going to give you a number associated with them too. So let's start with the girls. In A2, Geneva's been resurgent. Of course, A2 is tough. If you asked me this a month ago, I would have said 5% chance of Geneva to make it to a sectional final. I'm going to bump that up to maybe 30% chance to make a sectional final. In Class B, I think there's 4 teams to look at. It kind of pains me a little bit not to throw in Waterloo into this mix, because I think that they have the talent, but just you look at they're 2-7 in the league and 5-9. So I'm going to just mention them and say that they have a 5% chance. Maybe they can put something together. But the rest of Class B, Penn Yan has about a 15 to 20% chance. I think Minders has a 30 to 35% chance, and that can improve if they play better heading over the next 2 weeks. Palmac, I put them about the same as Minders, about a 35 to 40% chance. Be interesting to see how they do, having to play Mid Lakes twice. Mid Lakes, I'm going to throw them up there at about 65%, which normally it should be higher for an undefeated team. It's just that they've been great. They just haven't been dominant great. Is a team that I could say, oh yeah, you can pencil them in for a sectional final. They're going to have a tough game in the semifinals. It might be against a Pelmac or a Minders. So it'll be interesting, or a Wayland Cohocton. So good chance to see him, but it's not indefinite, even at 14-0. Moving down to Class C1, I think the Gananda girls got a great chance to return to that C1 final, the defending C1 champs. Bloomfield, of course, has a great chance. I put both Bloomfield and Gananda right about 40%. Class C2, South Seneca, making a resurgence. I'm putting them at about 50% right now to return to that final and maybe win a third straight. Red Creek, winners of 5 straight. I'm going to put them at about 30%. And I'm going to throw Lions in the mix too. Lions sneakily having a decent season, a better season than they've had in recent memory. They're at 7-3 in Wayne County, 9-4 overall. I'll put Lions at 10% to make that sectional final. And then in Class D1, Romulus girls and Naples girls. Legitimate contenders, I think, in D1. I'm going to throw them at about 30% to make that sectional final too. So now we're going to go to the boys. And let's start with A2 in Wayne. A2 is tough. Only one loss for Wayne to Pittsford Southern. They add Zenelovic. I always say that wrong. Braden Zenelovic. That's why I just call him the Fresh Prince of Ontario. Adding him back, they finally got their full roster back from the team that won sectionals a year ago, the first sectional title in school history. they might have the toughest of all, even though they have their whole team back. It's difficult, and hopefully they won't be in the same side of the bracket as Leadership, because Leadership's the one team that, if they make it to the final, they'll be underdogs, I think, against Leadership Academy if they do make the final, or whenever they do meet them, if they meet them in A2. But right now I'm putting Wayne right at 50%, which is pretty good odds when you consider some of the teams that they might have to face in the semifinal round. And even the quarterfinal round could be tough in Class A2. For Class B in the boys, of course, this is all Wayne Finger Lakes, and when you see Waterloo beat Newark last night, you got to give Waterloo at least a 5% chance. They're trending. They're young. They got a great player in Saluka. They got 3 great sophomores that are gaining more experience. So I'm going to throw Waterloo in there at 5%, even though that they're 5-9 overall and 2-7 in the league. Newark, if before last night, I probably would have said Newark I would give them a 20% chance, and I think that number was rising. But, geez, it's been a tough year for first-year coach Henry Caparis and Taylor Clements in his senior year. I'm going to put them at 15%. They got the experience. I mean, here's a team that was in the sectional finals in the Blue Cross Arena the past 2 years, right? The past 3 years? Or they played a semifinal game in the Blue Cross 3 years ago. So nobody has more postseason experience than Newark, and a lot of these guys on this roster. So I'll never count them out. But it's been a disappointing season so far for sure. Same thing for Mid-Lakes. Mid-Lakes I'm going to throw in at 10%. Hopefully Bryce Burry can summon something here in his senior year. They've got a really big front court with Hicks and Millman. But Penn Yan is probably a team with a more legitimate shot, even though Mid-Lakes did beat Penn Yan. I'm going to put Penn Yan at about 25% to make the sectional final, and the Minders boys I'm going to put at 45%, maybe 50% to get to the sectional final. They'll be disappointed if they don't. Let's put it that way. But to just say, oh yeah, they're you can pencil them in. No, they're going to have a really tough semifinal game, potentially against an opponent that knows them well. And they haven't shot the ball well enough to be considered any sort of a lock to get to the Blue Cross Arena. They'll be extremely disappointed, this senior-laden group, if they don't get to the Blue Cross. But I got to put them at 50%, and maybe 45, 50% for Coach Korzaneski. C1, Gananda boys, ER boys, Whitman boys, and Sodas all with a chance. I think Sodas and Whitman are hovering right around 10%, 1 in 10 chance they can make it to a sectional final. ER with Lexer and Cicero, let's go 30%. That's a team that's been there in recent history as well. Gananda boys, maybe 35%. I think C1 of all the classifications, C1 might be the toughest one to get that Wayne Finger Lakes team in the sectional finals. And in C2, Lions, of all and Coach Zach Young might not be happy with me saying this, but of all the teams that we talked about on the boys' side of things here, I'm putting Lions at 60%. They'll have a tough semifinal matchup just like everybody else, but nobody in C2 has Justice Smith, and he has just evolved into that next level type of player, and I'm throwing the Lions at 60%. I'm going to throw Bloomfield in there too at 5 to 10%. They got to rebound it better though. Real outside shot at this point for Bloomfield, I think, the way things have gone this season. And then in Class D1, Clyde, that's right, Clyde is in D this year. And so a lot of people would like me to say, 95% that Clyde will do it. I think that it's 70%, okay? But that's 30% that they won't. None of this is guaranteed, but it would be a huge, huge disappointment with Derek Chance, Drew Carnevale, and Marcus Chance, all as seniors, on this thin Clyde team if they don't make the Class D final. But again, they're going to have a tough semifinal matchup, and they were upset last year by Cuba Rushford in the semifinal when everybody was penciling them in for a sectional final last year. So we got about 10 minutes left here in the show. We're going to give you our power rankings. Let's give you our power rankings before we take a look at the week ahead, and let's start out with the boys here. No surprise, Wayne stays number 2. Wayne stays number 1. Minder stays number 2. Lions stays number 3, just ahead of Clyde. Then you got Penn Yan at 5, despite that loss to Minders last night. But you can still see they're probably a better team than Gananda or ER. Gananda comes in at 6. ER comes at 7. Newark comes at 8, and you might think, why are they even in the top 10? Well, I think Newark would beat Marcus Whitman. I really do. They lost in triple overtime to Waterloo last night, though, but they stay at 8. Whitman at 9, the best team in the West at 10-0, 12-2 overall. I feel bad that we can't move Marcus Whitman a little higher. Just with what I've seen out of these teams facing off against each other in the West, it's just, I don't think there's anybody out there that if Whitman played Newark wouldn't pick Newark. Of course, Whitman can prove me dead wrong by continuing to win and making a great run in C1 and winning a sectional title in C1, which I'll be rooting for him harder than anybody. I love that what that program's done the past couple of years, just dominating the Finger Lakes West and doing it in a way that's fun to watch. They play a great style of basketball. The kids love playing basketball in Whitman. They love playing with each other, and they're fun to watch. And then Mid Lakes comes in at 10, and this just shows, like, once you get down here to the bottom of the top 10 here in the boys, it really thins out. It really thins out. We just talked about sectional champs, and really only from ER up are the real legitimate teams with a legitimate shot. In my mind, what do I know, right? So let's kick it over now to the girls. Take a look at the girls' power rankings for the week. Mid Lakes, of course, stays at 1, Pelmac at 2, so you're going to get a couple matchups of 1 versus 2 over the next 2 weeks here. And in the Finger Lakes East, Bloomfield drops 1 spot after that loss to South Seneca. Geneva way up to 4. Really resurgent after dropping out of the power rankings earlier this year. South Seneca rises way up. I think they went from 9 to 5. Maybe could have been higher. They started the season at 2. Minders at 6. Gananda at 7. Red Jacket drops to 8. Penn Yan at 9. And Red Creek holding on at 10 despite keep winning. It just has not been copacetic in Red Creek. Alex Mosqueda, Isabella Wilbur's missed time. Again, that's another team that was in the top 5 at one point. There's not many opportunities for them once they get into the Wayne County League to kind of redeem themselves. They will have that chance against Gananda coming up, and that's obviously the game of the year in the Wayne County girls. So let's take a look now at the week ahead, some of the spotlight games. Monday night on the boys' side of things, C.G. Finney's playing East Rochester. That's an interesting game. C.G. Finney's in Class C2 with Lions. They beat Clyde. It'll be a good barometer for East Rochester. Of course, Minders beat C.G. Finney pretty badly this year, but we've seen a lot of Finney. They're a fun team to watch. Real animated coach. Monday, there we go, tomorrow. Gananda, Red Creek, at Red Creek hosting. So game of the year in Wayne County girls tomorrow night. Tuesday night on the boys' side of things, Penn Yan plays Wayne. At Wayne, Waterloo Minders crosstown rivalry game. See if Waterloo can back up that big triple overtime win and stun Minders in Seneca Falls on Tuesday night. And then where are we going to be on Tuesday night, Finger Lakes 1? We're going to be in Romulus. Actually, let me go back. Red Creek's traveling to Gananda for that game Monday night for the girls. Red Creek at Gananda. South Seneca at Romulus Tuesday. You won't find a bigger rivalry than the South County rivalry between the South Seneca and Romulus girls. Both state champs within the past 6 years, and they're facing off Tuesday. Dave Barnick also returns to the booth for Finger Lakes 1 after knee surgery. It'll be Dave Barnick and Mike Alessio calling that one from Romulus. You won't want to miss it. It's always a great atmosphere when these two teams get together. And then Wednesday night, back-to-back nights for Finger Lakes 1. It'll be East Rochester at Lions, calling that game with Rhett Taccone on Finger Lakes 1. East Rochester beat Lions when Lions played in their gym. Now they try to avenge that loss at the Atwood. It'll be our final game of the season from the Atwood. Won't want to miss that one. Wednesday night girls action. Mid Lakes will be challenged when they host Geneva. Waterloo girls host Minders girls in what could be Waterloo girls have beaten Minders last year when Minders won the sectional title, and Waterloo had a poor record that year, so it's a danger game for Minders for sure. Thursday night in the girls, Bloomfield hosts Red Jacket. That's a big one. Lions girls will be at Gananda. That's a big one. And the South Seneca girls are at Naples. So big games in the West and Wayne County. Then we move to Friday night. Mid-Lakes is hosting Newark. And I mentioned those two teams are battling for positioning in Class B. You want to be in the top half of that 16-team class, so you get a home game. And so this game could determine whether in sectionals Mid-Lakes has to play at Newark or Newark has to play at Mid-Lakes, or whether, which one of them is going to host a team, which is huge because you have to make some long drives sometimes in that first round if you're on the road in sectionals. Also on Friday night, Wayne will be at Waterloo, and Lions and Sodus square off in Sodus. So a potential danger game for Lions. Okay, for the girls on Friday night, Penn Yan's hosting Geneva in a big game for both teams. And then Minders Pelmac, it'll be Pelmac it'll be Pelmac is hosting Minders, on Friday night. In a really big game for both teams in the East, and really a team probably more important for Minders, who's at 5-4 in the league, than Pelmac, who's at 7-1 and 9-4 overall. Minders is 8-6 overall. Minders, if they're not careful, are going to be right back down there around 500. So that'll be a tough one and a good one. And then Saturday night, you got the Romulus Lady Warriors hosting Bloomfield, and I mentioned Romulus resurgent at 4-0, so they got a big game. They're playing the top two teams in the Finger Lakes West standings. The Romulus girls are this week. Coach Damon Nicholson, big week for his club. So, hey man, does it get any better than this? Does it get any better than this time of year when things are really starting to shape up, when sectionals are within sight? In just a couple of weeks, we're going to have all our league champs, and then all the sectional brackets come out. It's better than March Madness. There's brackets for every class, and some of these matchups, and we decide where are we going to go? What games are we going to be able to see? Are we going to be able to get 4 or 5 teams into the Blue Cross Arena on the boys' side, or into Rush Henrietta for the girls' side? How are we going to cover it? What are our announcing teams going to be? What crews are we going to send where? What games are we going to bring live to you? I'm really excited. I love it. I don't see how anyone can't. And the best is when it gets over, it's spring's finally arrived. So it's a great way to get us through winter here. I love it. You love it. We all love it. Thanks for spending an hour with me here in the Upstate Hoops Podcast. Connect with us on Twitter at FingerLakes1. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Our audio-only podcast is available on iTunes and Stitcher.com. Archived episodes are available at FingerLakes1.tv, and this podcast airs weekly on Tuesday night at 7 p.m. on Finger Lakes TV Spectrum Channel 12. You can also find our show, live stream games, and local news, weather, and sports 24/7 on the free FingerLakes1.com iPhone or Android app. I'm Jim Sinacropi. Good luck out there, and have a great week.